Hi Year 10, so now we're going to annotate the extract on page AC1, Act 3, Scene 4, for language and structural features. So one of the structural features that we've already identified is that the scene is taking place in a public space. Okay, so the way that Lady Macbeth and Macbeth behave in public is very different from how they behave in private. We know there's a banquet being prepared. The strategic use of these two props, the thrones, symbolising now that their status is of that of king and queen, and you know the guests at the banquet address them as my king and my queen. So those are things that reflect their status now that's been elevated from earlier on in the text. And there's sort of two sections to this particular page. And the first section, we start off by everybody's being welcomed, the lords and ladies are being invited to be seated, and Macbeth welcomes them, and you go, my hearty welcome, yeah? And then everybody says thank you, and then we're kind of into prose here, which is an interesting way of Shakespeare using language to address his subjects. Now it might be that he's of an elevated status now and he doesn't need to use poetry because he's not pandering to any particular audience. He's got these people, they are his subjects, they are now his subordinates. So it might be that he doesn't want to use poetry in this situation. And again, Lady Macbeth does the same, but it's all very pleasant and formal in the way that she's greeting her guests. She's playing the part of the hostess. And again, she kind of mirrors his language where she talks about my heart speaks. And we've got there some personification and a metaphor. Now, the reason I've highlighted this entrance of the first murderer is that his appearance on the stage would seem out of place, because his appearance would not reflect that of somebody who was of an elevated status, of nobility, of royalty. And the appearance of the blood on his face, which is noticed immediately by Macbeth, you could argue, would also be apparent to the audience. So his appearance juxtaposes his surroundings. He doesn't really belong there. He's a complete misfit. But Macbeth chooses to speak to him at length and disregard the guests that are there. So it says something about the way he is behaving with the subject matter. The murderer has come with news, and Macbeth wants to hear the news, and that is given priority over being a good host or playing the role of a king in this banquet setting. Okay, so here we have a real shift in the tone and atmosphere in this particular scene. And the fact that there's blood upon thy face is a symbol. And we know that throughout the text, blood has become symbolic, and we could say a motif, as it appears in so many different ways, in so many different situations and circumstances, and is a reoccurring symbol throughout the play, so we call that a motif. And then he says, it's Banquo's blood, and he goes, it's better that it's on you. So this is such a ruthless way of speaking. Macbeth says it's better that it's out and it's on you than it is in him. So the kind of malice that he feels towards Banquo now is a real change in his personality. You know, these were brothers in arms. They weren't to war together. They looked out for each other. They fought on the same side. They would have fought side by side in battle. And now he's in such a mindset that he thinks that Banquo's blood being spilt is a good thing. So really, really powerful there. And then, is he dispatched? Very blunt, matter of fact. And look at the response here. His throat is cut, that I did for him. Such violent imagery being presented. And then, you know, Macbeth is praising this murderer for having committed this horrendous crime and sin, and you are the best of the cutthroats, you're the best of them, sort of praising. And then the inquiry of Fleance. And remember, Fleance is a child, and Macbeth is ordering his death, and it says something about how ruthless and malicious he's become in his demeanour, in his manner, and also in the actions that he's deciding to take. And he says, look, it's really important that you didn't let him escape. It's just as important that Fleance dies as Banquo dying. And then this kind of revelation, Fleance has escaped. And then we've got lots of end stopping here. Sort of quite dramatic in its tone. And then he says, look, then comes my fit again, suggesting that he does have a fit. Insanity, guilt, supernatural. So all of these things could be the fit. And then these whole as marble, founded as rock. All of these similes that he uses to say how he isn't. And as broad and general as the casing air, but now I'm cabin, cribbed, confined. And then you've got this cacophony of alliteration where we have the repetition of the C sound. If you weren't sure of that, just look it up or add it to your glossary of terms. So cacophony is when you have the repetition of the C sound at the beginning of words, but this is also, we say, a triad or a tricolon, the rule of 3. I'm just going to move that up a little bit so you can see. And then it goes, but Banquo's safe. I am, my good lord, safe in a ditch. Can't be safe in a ditch. And then look at this brutal imagery here. 20 gashes. 20 trenched gashes. Again, the use of the alliteration. Kind of just really emphasising the gory nature or the graphic imagery here. The least a death to nature. There we go. So that's page 81. I'm going to just take a minute, pause what you need to pause. I'm just going to move the camera so that you can make sure that you get all of the annotations in there. And then you can, your page should look like my page in your text. Okay, so the next video we're going to do is page 83, and we're going to do a reading and a translation, okay?